League of Women Voters of Sonoma County. My name is Donna Roper, and I will serve as your moderator for this evening. We want to thank the City of Santa Rosa for the use of the council chambers. This forum is being broadcast live on Comcast Cable Channel 26 by the Community Media Center of Santa Rosa and is also being recorded for later playback. This is a forum only for the Democratic primary for the 7th Assembly District because candidates for other political parties are running unopposed. First, a brief word about the League of Women Voters. The purpose of the League is to promote political responsibility through informed and active participation of citizens in government. It is nonpartisan and does not support or oppose any political party or candidate. It does advocate for its positions on governmental issues, which are selected after study and consensus of the membership. Throughout its history, the League of Women Voters has been providing opportunities for public forums so that candidates seeking public office can take their cases directly to the voters. And although it's called the League of Women Voters, we welcome men. Some of our best members are men. We ask that no signs or campaign materials be brought into the council chambers. Tables for literature distribution may be set up outside the chamber doors. Here are the ground rules for this forum. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for an opening statement and 2 minutes for a closing statement. I will ask questions prepared by the League of Women Voters, while questions from the audience will be collected and sorted to prevent duplication. Please fill out your questions now on the cards provided. You can raise your cards in the air and someone will come by and pick them up from you. We may not have time for all of the questions. Each candidate will have 1.5 minutes to answer each question unless we run out of time. Our timekeepers, Jane Ernstberger and Maureen Olson, who are seated here in front, will raise a 30-second card to warn the speaker and a stop card when the time is up. When the red card is raised, please conclude your sentence. For the candidates, if you'd like me to repeat the questions, please ask. Also, do not feel that you have to use up the entire time for a reply. We expect the audience to give each speaker an opportunity to be heard. This is not a town meeting, so comments from the audience will not be accepted. In deference to our limited time, please hold your applause until the end of the debate. So now you have the format. Please meet the candidates, Michael Allen, Lee Pierce, and Michael Wilson. Prior to the start of this forum, the order of speaking was determined by drawing lots. Our speaker for the opening statement will begin with Lee Pierce, and followed by Michael Allen, and finally Michael Wilson. And the questions will be asked in a rotating order. Okay, we'll start. Mr. Pierce.
Thank you, Donna, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen in the chamber and those in the viewing audience at home. My name is Lee Pierce, and I'm a native of the 7th Assembly District, having been born in St. Helena, lived in Vallejo, and also Santa Rosa for almost 33 years. I'm a veteran of the U.S. Army, and I hold a Bachelor of Science degree from the University of San Francisco. I have served on many community boards and civic groups during my long career. I was elected to the Santa Rosa City Council in November '04. This is kind of like deja vu all over again, in the words of Yogi Berra. And I look forward to a vigorous and informative debate, and I thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Mr. Allen.
Yes, good evening. My name is Michael Allen. I'm running for the 7th Assembly District. My ballot designation is both community organizer and attorney. I have worked in this community for many years now, over 30 years, and I believe that my major qualification for this particular job is that I have a long history of bringing the community together through consensus building, through working in coalitions. I'm also the only candidate that has actually been successful in the last few years in actually bringing jobs to Sonoma County and working with the community. Some of the examples of the work I've done recently is that I worked for the last 5 years on the 2 Smart Train campaigns with many devoted community activists. And we were successful in getting the Smart Train passed. I'm now the chair of the Citizens Oversight Committee for the Smart Train. I was selected by the Smart Train board and elected by my peers to be on that board. That particular project is going to create 30,000 jobs over the next 20 years, both in the construction of the railroad, but then in the 14 train stations and bike trails that will be part of that system. I'm also one of the co-founders of Solar Sonoma County, which will solarize Sonoma County, which create thousands of jobs. And most recently, I worked with the environmental community and housing advocates and labor to negotiate with the Cottings with Sonoma Mountain Village, which will be one of the first zero-carbon communities in the world. And it kind of fulfills my belief that we can create jobs and be protective of the environment at the same time. Thank you.
And Mr. Wilson.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for coming out tonight. I'd first like to thank the organizers, all the League of Women Voters, and everyone who worked so hard to put this event together, and especially to our timer, since hopefully my time's not up yet, but we're working on it. My earliest memory of my mother is meetings like this, whether PTA meeting or other community meetings, where Mom would have an idea and stand up and say, just a half a second. And like any politician who I learned from, it was never half a second. So it's good to have the timer out there to keep us moving and informative with what we're here to do. I'm the Chief Financial Officer of an architecture firm and partners with my brother. And that during that time, it was important to both of us that our company be involved in the community and that we, our employees and ourselves, are out there in the community working for nonprofits, helping to advance the common good of the community. And it's really that community involvement that led me to seek election to the Vallejo City Council, where I was elected in 2007, amidst great financial problems, as I'm sure you're all aware, with the city of Vallejo. But the key has been in identifying those problems and working towards solutions. And over the past 2 years, just over 2 years on the council, we are working towards solutions. And some of those solutions have been held up by the state. And one of the reasons I decided to run for the state assembly is because the state is not working to solve its problems. It's not working to find ways to operate more efficiently and to communicate directly and honestly with the community. The state is continuing to take away money from those of us who live in the cities and towns of California, continuing to push problems down the road and not bring solutions. I think just like we are in our community, we need to start with solutions locally and bring those to the state level. And I think we need people on the state level in the California State Assembly who can help rebuild confidence, to communicate directly and honestly with those of us who live in the state, and to work to rebuild California. And I would like to be your person, your designee to work to rebuild California. Thank you.
Thank you all. The first question, we'll start with Mr. Allen. And some of you touched on this in your opening statements, but what qualifications do you have that sets you apart from your opponents?
I think the major qualification that sets me apart from my opponents is experience in problem solving and building community consensus. What I have found over the years is that if you're going to be in the assembly, what you have to do is you're going to be representing everybody. So it's important that you get the support of small business, local business, that you work with labor, that you work with the environmental community, that you work with the local chamber of commerce, and you try to find solutions that work for everybody. And what I feel is my strongest suit is being able to really try to work through what people are saying and find the commonality. And once we find the commonality with what people are concerned with, work out from that basis to craft solutions that everyone can live with and that are sustainable solutions. Anybody can put a Band-Aid on a problem. It's another thing to work out an issue where whatever the solution is has staying power and works for everybody. And I believe that is my strength.
Great. Same question for Mr. Wilson.
Thank you. I think one aspect that sets me apart is my financial business background, joined with experience in the government level, joined with an experience in the city of Vallejo of working to bring solutions. And I think that same, on a small level, locally, is what we need on the larger level with the state, to bring solutions, to find ways that we can move forward. And part of that is to communicate directly and openly with the citizens, with the voters, so that they understand and have trust in what we're doing and trust that we are going to emerge as a stronger California. So certainly those qualifications of matching the financial experience in business with the public experience on the Vallejo City Council are what set me apart. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. And Mr. Pierce.
Well, first of all, my name is not Michael. Secondly, I am the only full-term elected person sitting up here at this dais. I've served on both the Planning Commission and as an elected official, achieving the rank of vice mayor of the largest city north of the gate to Portland. In that experience, I worked on the Budget Committee, the Economic Development Committee, very important committees towards getting some of the major problems of this district. As I go around the district, I hear from all of the officials and all of the residents of these areas. Secondly, I have chaired the Private Industry Council of this county for 2 terms, and I've also served on the Workforce Investment Board. Both of those organizations are made up of coalitions of government and private sector employers and also the education community. So I have a familiarization with both private sector and public sector experience. I've also developed a number of relationships throughout the California League of Cities, and I'm a graduate of the Civic Leadership Institute, which looks at future legislators. And I'm a veteran of the U.S. Army.
Thank you. I'm reminded to remind you that the question, as you can see, is going to be for all of the candidates, so we won't have questions for one particular candidate. Your question should be for everyone. And the next one, we'll start with Mr. Wilson. What is your position on public financing of political campaigns and why?
I think public financing of political campaigns, especially on the state level, could be a very helpful thing. As many of you know, it's very difficult to run for office and to raise money, and we are constantly having politicians who have to focus on fundraising and not as focused on the campaign. Of course, we all focus very much on the campaign and on our service, and so there are certainly benefits. The downside is, how do you pay for it? That's a constant question as we look into every project in the state. We need to find ways to pay for it. I think there needs to be more balance brought into the election process. I'd love to see a campaign for state assembly where this dais would be filled with people. I think we need to work harder to inspire people to run for office, whether it's on city council level, on the state level, or on federal level. That we shouldn't just have people who can line up the money and move forward with an election. It shouldn't be predestined. So in public financing, I think there is an opportunity. But it needs to come with balance, because we can't just strap the taxpayers with more taxes in order to run elections. We need to be able to get the word out there and cleanly and directly put forward a message. So I think it's certainly something I would be interested in looking at further as we move through public financing, but it needs to come in balance and not just assist incumbents to remain in office longer, but to give opportunity to widen the ability of people to serve our communities. Thank you.
And Mr. Pierce.
Thank you. Let me say right off the bat, I am a supporter of Prop 15, the California Fair Elections initiative. You could look at me as a litmus test of sorts, as a person who has no special interest money in his campaign of any kind, all grassroots from the people who I expect to represent. Those are my special interests, the people of this district. I believe that if we can turn to a more publicly financed election process in not only the local and the state level, but the national perhaps is a little more complex to do that, but certainly on the local level, we'll get a broader range of participants in local government. As a minority candidate and person achieving this level office, it is a very difficult and daunting challenge. And so I think that if we got open this up a little broader and allowed more people to come into the process through a public publicly financed program, that would be very desirable.
Okay. And Mr. Allen.
Well, let me answer it this way. As the top fundraiser for this campaign, I have been not enamored with having to constantly go out and try to raise funds to actually get our message out to the people. I think the thing that's been most enjoyable to me is the 12,000 homes I've walked, the thousands of phone calls we've made to voters. My problem with it is that I don't feel that the proposition we have is robust enough or strong enough. I think that what they have in Arizona and elsewhere in the country, where it's a full-fledged public finance law, is the way to go. The one that we're going to have voted on is a very limited trial kind of proposition. I think they're going to tax the lobbyists because it's popular to tax lobbyists. But to me, if we're going to have public finance, it has to be cut across our entire population. And the effects of having that kind of proposition is that you're going to get people to run who normally would not run, who will broaden the kind of variety and diversity that we need in public service. So I'm very much in favor of it. I'm just sorry that it's not robust enough in California. I'd like to see it much broader.
Okay, for Mr. Pierce, what will you do to be able to work with the opposition party, and will you pledge to run a positive campaign?
Thank you. What I will do to work with the opposition party has already begun. As a candidate, I have members of the opposition party supporting my candidacy financially with contributions above the $99 stealth level. And so I would continue to cultivate and develop those kinds of relationships, because I'm a firm believer that this is the United States of America. This is California. And everyone who lives or resides here has a right to input to how this state is governed. And we should not shut out any particular person or group. That is the mantra that I will carry forward. And I look, what was the second part of your question?
Will you pledge to run a positive campaign?
Absolutely pledge to run a positive campaign.
Okay, Mr. Allen.
First of all, I have run a positive campaign and will intend to do so for the rest of my campaign. And would you repeat the question?
What will you do to be able to work with the opposition party?
I think that the most respectful thing you can do when you work with opponents, whether it's the opposite party or various interests in a dispute, is to ask them what they believe and why they believe it, and try to understand and listen to what their concerns are. Because the only way I have been able in the past to resolve differences is truly being respectful of either what the fear is, what the concern is, and then trying to find that common ground. And so there's a lot of rhetoric about being bipartisan, but to actually make it work, it takes a tremendous amount of respectful listening and then creativity to find solutions where the other side gets what they want or a piece of it, and the folks that have their view get what they want. And trying to craft those kind of agreements can be painstaking, very difficult to do, but it requires patience and a tremendous amount of respect for people's views and differences.
Thank you. Mr. Wilson.
I believe we need to restore a strong sense of balance back into the state legislature, that Democrats and Republicans can work better together. We can improve the way we work together by finding that common ground and working for the common good of the citizens of California. Certainly on the local level, and we see many nonpartisan offices, in the nonpartisan offices of City Council and county boards of supervisors, Democrats and Republicans and people of various other parties do work together and do attend to the business of the city, county, or town to which they were elected. And I think that same aspect is certainly possible on the state level and on the federal level, of course, that we as Democrats can work well together with Republicans to trust other people with their ideas and to work together for the one common goal, and that's to create the best opportunity for the citizens of our state. So I certainly think that working together with the opposition is what I would do, and part of that is involved in a positive campaign of bringing forward the issues that affect the voters, whether those issues are traditionally partisan or unique to one party or the other. I think a positive campaign puts forward the issues and lets the voter make an informed decision. And so I'm glad to see at events like this and people who follow campaigns to take the time to get the candidates elected who will represent them to the best of their ability. Thank you.
That's good. We'll start with Mr. Allen. How will you deal with the two-thirds majority rule? Do you support repealing the supermajority rule?
I absolutely support repealing the majority rules that we have right now, where it's the a two-thirds is required to get a budget to move forward on anything in terms of what the state needs to do. There are two different propositions out there. I support either. I think either one will move the state forward. I think the one that basically puts us on the same level playing field that other states have, where it's both for budget and revenues, to me is a more complete solution to it. But I do feel that when you have the ability of the minority to the one-third to control what happens in the legislature, it tends to have really unpleasant consequences, where you have midnight budgets being cut, deals being cut at the last moment, environmental issues being thrown on the table to get a budget when they have no place in the budgetary process, special deals for particular districts being placed onto the budget at the last minute. So I believe that the two-thirds budget rule that we presently have has distorted the budgetary process and made it incredibly difficult to put together a sustainable long-term budget plan that works for all the citizens of California. So in answer to your question, yes, I'm very much opposed to the present system. We need to change it.
Thank you. Mr. Wilson.
Thank you. I believe that leadership decisions in the state legislature should be made by a majority of those elected to represent us at that point. That this model of the two-thirds majority is not helpful and has not moved forward the process of governing California. Local communities, our cities, towns, our counties are required to pass a budget on time, yet our state can continue to cause damage to those local budgets by not passing their budget and by continually moving it on and not making decisions. But worse than the two-third model of government is the Big Five budgeting model. And that's what I'm absolutely opposed to, that 5 people, 2 senators, 2 assembly members, and the governor are not the ones that our community elected to engage a budget that works for the best of California. So I'm most opposed to the Big Five model of budgeting and would work hard to return our state to make decisions, all our leadership decisions on budgets and revenues, by a majority of those elected to do so. And as your representative of the 7th Assembly District, I would hold fast and work for that, our common good. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Pierce.
Absolutely, I would support majority rule. I've worked on the petition drive. I went to George Lakoff's initial meeting on that. And we are a majority rule state, but we actually have a minority ruling this state. I think California is one of the only few states that has this two-thirds requirement. And I believe in accountability. So if you are the majority party, you ought to be held responsible, no matter if it's Republican or Democrat, held responsible for the decisions that you make. And I'm willing to stand up and be accountable in that way. So absolutely, I support majority rule.
Thank you. For Mr. Wilson, what steps will you take to help solve California's budget crisis? Just an easy question.
Similar to when I took office in the city of Vallejo, we immediately went in and looked at the financial situation of our community. We looked at the rug, looked under it, and saw the years of sweeping that had been put underneath that rug. We saw the years of the kicking of the can down the road, which brought no solutions to our community. So too with the state of California, I would immediately start working on improving the efficiency of government to eliminate waste and to work together with the employees of the state of California to find ways to improve what is being done in our state. That it's by working together, not just with those who have been elected, but working together with the people who are doing the work to find ways to do it more efficiently, more effectively, and more cost effectively. And to be sure that we have balance in our revenues. Locally in the city of Vallejo, we had to look at our revenues and make sure that a 40-year-old tax on our utility users was still in balance, that it was legal, and that it was going to allow us to provide services. So too in the state, not only improving efficiency, but finding ways to balance our revenues so that we can improve the climate and bring jobs back into California and have that raise the tides of our community. So it's the balance of solving the budget crisis. It's not going to be a quick fix. I'm not going to go in and say, let's move the payday of our employees from June 30th to July 1st. I'm not going to say, let's take 10% out of the wages of workers in California to pretend that we're solving a budget. We're going to have to take time to work on this. It's not going to happen quickly. It's going to happen by working together and coming up with a long-term plan. Like in the city of Vallejo, to come out of bankruptcy, we are putting together a long-term plan with stages and benchmarks as we move forward. For me, solving the state's budget crisis will also set benchmarks of moving forward and advancing and returning the Golden State to the great state that it is. Thank you.
And Mr. Pierce.
Thank you. There are a number of complexities to this question, but overarching, I think, is the structure itself. We have a one-year budget cycle, and so a new legislator comes on and they spend their time trying to get elected again, and the budget takes 6 or 7 months to grind out. I think that whole structure needs to be looked at again, maybe a 5-year forecast with a 2-year budget cycle so that the 2 years run with the term of a legislator. And but overarching, I think there's a bigger problem. There's the 800-pound gorilla called the super pensions, the pension plans. We need to take a look at that. And we're in a different time, a different economy. And we cannot continue to stick our heads in the sand and pretend that we can fund something that is not sustainable. And by doing so, I think we begin to start living within our means, putting together rainy day funds, and spending accordingly. Prop 13 and Prop 98 hit us pretty hard, but they were good propositions when they were enacted, I believe personally. But some of the fallout has left some devastation on education, on communities, and the state continues to raid city coffers, and that's got to stop. Thank you.
Mr. Allen.
To put into context, the California budget is a little bit north of $100 billion, which is a lot of money. I don't think people realize that the California gross domestic product is approximately $1.8 trillion. We have a huge economy. California's economy is actually larger than Canada's, an entire nation. We are an incredibly diverse state that has very many different sectors. We have the energy sector, we have biotechnology, we have retail, we have agriculture. What we don't have in California is a coherent, cohesive, strategic plan for economic development. We spend hundreds of millions of dollars per year in California, and there is no centralized place to actually work with business and a public-private partnership to move California forward. If we're going to actually make progress in terms of creating jobs, we have to have an aggregate idea of what our total resources are and what sectors we want to target and how we're going to help them get there over the next 5 years. We did not get into this mess overnight. We will not get out of this mess immediately. But I'm telling you, and this is from talking to people going door to door, the number one issue is getting people back to work and paying taxes. When we do that, we can fund education, we can fund the goals that we have. We have a tax code that was designed in the 1930s. Our tax code, although on income tax is progressive, it is regressive because we depend so much on sales tax, which affects the lowest paid and the people with the humblest means in our state. We definitely should be looking at Amazon is fighting, trying to tax internet transactions. That could generate a couple of $2 billion. We could be taxing the oil severance to generate $2 billion more in taxes. We could do things where we could actually start funding the education, because right now what's happening is that all our young people are paying a huge tax where they're coming out of school with hundreds of thousands of dollars sometimes of bills, and that's a tax on our future generation. So I am absolutely determined. I agree. Of course we have to look to efficiencies. Of course we have to look to whether the pensions are sustainable. The average pension for the state worker is about $2,600 per month. The paper talks about those who get over $100,000 their pensions, which is 1%. So maybe we need a cap on pensions. We need to work with the unions for a sustainable answer. So yes, we need good management, but above all else, we need intelligent design over the next 5 years to have a coherent plan as to how we're going to get California back on track and back working again.
One of our questions is on the state pension system, so since you brought that up, would you like to give us a little bit more of your thoughts on that and maybe solutions or suggestions? I know it's early to say definitively this is what you're going to do, but give us some ideas.
Well, as I travel around this district and I talk to folks, that is a big concern, and the concern is mostly the private sector tends to feel like the public sector, and I'm not talking about rank and file employees here. I want to make that distinction. I used to belong to a couple of labor unions myself, and rank and file people, I don't care where they are, whether they're union or non-union, those should be the last positions that are furloughed, the last positions that are cut from a budget. I'm talking about those super big $100,000 or more executive level positions that retire in the mid-50s and go out earning exorbitant salaries that such that they can come back and work somewhere else and earn a decent salary. Some people call it double dipping. So again, I think we need to take a look at whether we go to a different process rather than defined benefit. I even think a defined benefit, as I suggested to a public safety group that I met with, as you could go to a defined benefit perhaps with a cap, so that you cap off the retirement salary rather than having it indexed to your highest wage that you earned. Maybe it's indexed to the cost of living. And as we can see in this particular economy, there has not been a very aggressive COLA there. I think a lot of these pensions are tied to like an 8% kind of annual growth, and we can't sustain that. We don't have the tax money coming in anymore on property taxes. Sales taxes are down, and you've got to have that money coming from somewhere. And I'm not sure where there's a sustainable source, except that I think we've got to go back and visit. You know, compensation is always the big ticket item in trying to pare down your budget and get your expenses in order. And that is one that we don't like talking about, but we need to start dialoguing about that, and we need to be courageous enough to make the changes so that all people in the district and in the state, both private and public, feel represented.
Thank you. Mr. Allen.
Well, let me put it to you this way. When I, a number of years ago, Mendocino County almost went bankrupt. It was around 1992 during the last recession. And I worked with the county of Mendocino to, there were major rollbacks in compensation to keep that county solvent. And the way we did it was working together. The employees were not scapegoated. Management was not demonized. We found a solution together. What I've been telling the labor organizations, I talked to them about this, is that there's a number of ways to work towards sustainability. People can contribute more to their pensions if they so choose. We don't know what's going to be the result of the health care bill passed in Congress, which will take a lot of pressure off the pension systems as that's slowly implemented over the next 4 years. Obviously, there's ways, Mr. Pierce mentioned, capping the highest folks who are going out with huge pensions, curbing those abuses. But I do want to emphasize that the average person when they retire from state service is pulling down about $2,600 a month. Many of these public employees are not in Social Security, which is not an issue that's well known. I think an issue for all Californians is having some form of security and health care in their retirement. I think that's something that's a basic human right. I'm very proud of the fact that I was one of the people on the Speakers Bureau when Bush tried to privatize Social Security, saying we should put the money in the stock market. So to me, the issue of one group having a pension, other people not having pensions, ask me, what can we do to provide for the stability of people as we have an aging population, so that people are not thrown onto welfare and public assistance, but can have a retirement with dignity and with health care. And that's something we have to solve so we do not have a society of haves and have-nots.
Thank you. Mr. Wilson?
Well, as an elected official who spent a great deal of time looking at wage and benefits of our employees, it's clear to me that we need to ensure that we're making promises to our employees that we can keep and finding ways to have balance in those promises. I think we need to be sure that we have appropriate employee matches. And many people, when they look at pension, don't realize that our employees are matching that pension contribution. We need to look at that and ensure that we're having that match so that we're funding that pension. Neither the employee nor the public want an unfunded liability of a pension system that is broken. And we need to avoid creating unfunded liabilities by enriching pensions without a plan of how to allocate those funds that have not been matched into the pension fund. And we need to restrict governments from taking what's called PERS holidays or borrowing or stealing from pension funds, and to ensure that the employees, the money they've put forward to their pension, is there for them during their golden years. And when we look at wages and benefits, it's one entire package that the government, and just like any business, needs to look at with our employees, that we balance health care benefits with pension benefits with wages. And we look at the long-term implications and costs of those benefits. We need to do that on all of our local levels. Now that we've looked at what is the unfunded liability that we've inherited, now we have to deal with not only that, but the ongoing cost of the pension and the health care. We have been doing that in the city of Vallejo. Cities and counties throughout the state will continue to have to do that, to work together with their employees to make adjustments to their retiree health, to their pension programs, and to their wages. We need to do that on a local level, and that will have to happen on the state level, or we'll never find a solution.
Thank you. Thank you all for being succinct. I appreciate that. Next question. Do you support the concept of a living wage standard to replace the current inadequate standard of the minimum wage? And if so, how could that be implemented at the state level? And Mr. Allen will start.
Well, I'm one of the co-founders of the Sonoma County Living Wage movement here, so yes, I am a proud supporter of the living wage. Back in the 1960s, when the minimum wage was established, that was supposed to be by national policy a way of people having an adequate wage to be able to support themselves. What happened with the minimum wage is that there was never any sort of cost of living increase put to it, and over the years the relation between the minimum wage to the living wage grew farther and farther apart. One of the major problems we had in this country, and why we had a major meltdown in our economic system, is that we have become a nation of debtors and wage slaves, where people are not able to pay for their essential living situation, pay for the education of their children without taking out loans. So we developed a huge overhang of debt where people were essentially not being able to pay those debts because of the wage structure, where we had a growing disparity between CEOs in this country making 500 times what the average rank and file worker made, whereas in the 1950s and 1960s, when we had prosperity and a larger middle class, the ratio was more like 12 to 1 or 20 to 1, or like what Japan has, which is not such a severe ratio. So we have to find a way to we have not had a crisis in productivity of the American workforce. Far from it. We've had continual spikes of productivity of the American workforce, but without a sharing of it with the middle class. And it's been my feeling that I understand why we chose to aid the banking industry and bail them out, but the middle class needs sufficient wages to be able to clothe, feed themselves, and educate their children. So we have to find a way to pay a wage where the gains are shared with the workforce.
Thank you. Mr. Wilson?
It's very important to me that we emerge from this situation we found ourselves in where we have a no-wage scenario, where unemployment has skyrocketed and businesses have left our state. I believe we need living wage, an appropriate wage, and wages that are fair and equitable to our employees. And we need to balance that we can remain competitive in the marketplace. From our government wages to private wages, we need to realize that we are competing with other states in this country and competing with other countries. So to balance, however the wage structure is going to be, I think is great. And I think we need to balance that with getting people back to work, but not back to work at slave wages or so they can be indentured servants and not able to afford education and health care, but to return them to work with opportunities to grow in their jobs, opportunity to work in the community in which they live, and opportunity to raise a family in California. So I think we need to bring great, appropriate living wages, working wages that come with high-quality jobs and a variety of jobs in our state. And I'll continue to work for our workers in bringing that to the state of California.
Thank you. Mr. Pierce?
Thank you. I believe that that's another area that needs to be left to the local jurisdictions. I don't think the state has any business trying to mess with the local economy. We all know that it's been said that 80% of the job opportunities happen through small business, through the small business channels. And if the state is legislating what wages ought to be to these small business owners, I think we're going to see more and more for lease and for sale signs and empty buildings around. I think the market tends to dictate what wages ought to be. And if people are not within those windows, they're probably not going to last very long. I worked for an employer known as Hewlett-Packard back in the days, and they did not have a labor organization advocating for them, and they had lots of happy employees working very well and still loving the company. So again, I think this is a matter between the employer and the employee, and certainly the local jurisdictions in terms of what wages ought to be. You can certainly decimate an economy real fast by legislating what the market tends to do or can do.
Thank you. We've asked a lot of budget questions, so I think we have a few more minutes to go into some environmental issues. Mr. Wilson, given the recent oil spill in New Zealand from a state-of-the-art drilling rig, is there a role for more California offshore oil?
Well, I'm opposed to additional offshore drilling in the state of California. I think we need to work on developing clean, renewable resources, and that risking our beautiful coastline with oil spills and damage is not something I'm in support of. I'm in support of improving the way in which we extract oil, improving the way in which we develop clean energies and use those to advance our state. The state of California has always been an innovator. I'm sure it was innovative when we drilled oil wells along the coast in places like Santa Barbara. But the new innovation is what I believe we need to be pursuing in the state of California, new energies and new opportunities that we can bring those not only throughout our country, but that we can be the leader to even other countries in finding ways of improving energy efficiency. So to summarize, I would not be in favor of new oil drilling along the California coast.
Mr. Pierce?
Well, thank you. I was an early supporter, one of the first three supporters of our President, Barack Obama. And I have to say that I'm disappointed in his position on the drilling that may take place in 2014 or 16, someplace out in the future. It's kind of a placeholder, if you will. Now, I should not pretend to know the angst or the factors on the table that led him to that decision. He did give us a postponement right now. There's not going to be any rigs out there in Bodega Bay or anything like that, and I appreciate that. Yes, I'm against destroying our coastline and with these big rigs and that sort of thing. I think we have to look at other ways to go after renewable energy sources and lessen the dependence upon fossil fuels. So, yeah, I would oppose that.
And Mr. Allen?
From my previous answers, with the SMART train, for instance, it's going to run on biodiesel. With Solar Sonoma County, we're trying to solarize Sonoma County as rapidly as possible and get people to have the ability to weatherize our homes, to put solar panels on the roofs and get out from the use of oil as quickly as possible and not increase greenhouse gas emissions. I'm absolutely opposed to offshore drilling. I think that the longer we hold on to oil, the longer we are doomed to end up in situations where we get drawn into foreign conflicts and resource wars. I feel very strongly that if the money that we've spent in the last few years on conflict would have been spent on research and innovation and moving us to different technologies that are available, we'd be in a far better place today. So I'm quite proud to say that I got the endorsement of the Sierra Club, League of Conservation Voters, Sonoma County Conservation Action, because I've been unwavering in my support for alternative uses of energy, finding different ways, but no offshore drilling, nor am I in favor of nuclear power.
Thank you. I wish we had more time for questions, but we want to make sure we give you plenty of time for your closing statements. And we're going to start with Michael Wilson. Thank you.
Well, thank you all for joining us on this League of Women Voters opportunity to get to know the candidates. And I think as you look at each of the candidates, it's important that you look at our record and what we're doing. All of us have a record, and all of us have opportunity and inspiration to bring to the California State Assembly. I bring a unique experience of working to solve problems both in the private sector as chief financial officer of a company and as an elected official in the city of Vallejo that's been working hard to solve its problems. And I look forward to bringing a solution and leadership to our entire 7th Assembly District, from Vallejo to Santa Rosa to each city in the county of Napa, to bring integrity and direct contact to the people who I will represent, to make you proud of your leaders, and to give you the opportunity to have your voice heard and to have action taken to benefit our state through your leader in the California State Assembly. I would appreciate your getting to know me more. You can call me. You can call me at 707-731-1426. You can visit me online at wilsonforcalifornia.com or email me directly at michael@wilsonforcalifornia.com. I appreciate your consideration and would greatly appreciate your vote in our election on June 8th. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Pierce.
Thank you, Donna, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen, once again for sharing this evening with us. This is a very important part of civic life, and certainly to us candidates, It feels good to know that there are people who will come out on a rainy Monday night, dodging the hail and raindrops, and participate in their local government. So I appreciate that. Thanks to the League of Women Voters for their sponsoring and hosting this forum. I'm asking for your vote tonight because I believe that I am truly the best qualified candidate who can best represent you at the state legislature. In a few short weeks, your vote will determine whether California returns to the same old business as usual, funded by big-moneyed special interests, or whether we send Sacramento a loud and clear message by not voting for any candidate whose campaign has been funded by money from special interests. Whether we send a person with special interest money or not, we need to send someone who has courage to stand up to those interests that already exist there. And I believe I have that courage. I also ask you to support Proposition 15, the California Fair Elections Act. I invite you to visit my website at leepierce2010.com, or as you may decide to call me, 707-328-6483. I'm proud to be endorsed by a list of local elected city officials from the council members in Napa, Juliana Inman, Jim Kreider, council members in Vallejo, Joanne Shively, Stephanie Gomes, Santa Rosa, Marcia Vos-Dupre, Sebastopol even, Kathleen Schaefer, Supervisor Mike Kearns, and Calistoga Mayor Jack Jingles. Thank you very much.
And Mr. Allen.
You can go to my website at allenforassembly.com. My phone number is 707-695-6454. For those of you who've worked with me over the years, you know that there's a difference between talking about doing things and doing things. And I have established a record over this last 31 years of being there with you in the trenches, fighting the battles together, whether it be regarding the privatization of community hospital and working with the Board of Supervisors to secure health care for this community and access to care, charity care, and training our next generation of doctors, whether it's the SMART Train, Solar Sonoma County, Sonoma Mountain Village, working with Mendocino County through their difficulties. You can talk about these things, but it's quite another to do them. And what I promise all of you is that when I'm elected to the Assembly, you're going to see me, you're going to have an opportunity to argue with me, you're going to have an opportunity to tell me what you like about what I'm doing, what I'm not doing that you don't like, what your ideas are, because we're all in this together as a society, and the way we're going to solve our problems is together. And that means not demonizing people that you don't agree with. It means listening respectfully to others and figuring out solutions that work for the largest number of people. Because it's in the Constitution, working for the general welfare. That representative that works for the general welfare is the person you want to elect to office. And I believe I have demonstrated through my actions, which speak far louder than words, that I will hold that to be true when I'm elected. Thank you so very much.
That concludes the forum. This forum was broadcast live by the Community Media Center of Santa Rosa and was also recorded for later playback on KRCB at 8 a.m. Sunday morning on May 9th. The schedule for playbacks on Comcast Cable in Santa Rosa is on a handout at the back of the room. For nonpartisan information on all the elections and candidates, go to the website at www.smartvoter.org. As a reminder about the features of Smart Voter, if you enter your zip code, you can see your ballot online, and we will be hosting more forums in the next few weeks. They're also listed on a handout in the back of the room. We want to thank Michael Allen, Lee Pierce, and Michael Wilson for their participation tonight and for their willingness to run for this important office. Good luck. Thank you also to the League of Women Voters and you, the audience, for coming. Be sure to vote on June 8th and encourage your friends to vote. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great.